in religion? Are they complementary or at odds with each other? And if it's so, how much does it really matter? You know, faith is very personal and mysterious and individualistic and inexpressible and indefinable. Religion is merely the language that you can use to express what is fundamentally inexpressible, to define what is undefinable. So, Pastor Bernard, welcome to the broadcast. Author, mentor, teacher, founder of Christian Culture Center, intersection of faith. We welcome you to the broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Armstrong. Good to be with you.
You know, I wanted to talk about the context for a moment of the world that we find ourselves in and how you respond to this biblically and just in terms of human frailty. You know, you followed the story with Jeffrey Epstein and the exploitation of underage girls and the very powerful who were involved with him. We followed the story of Fannie Willis, who is the Fulton County District Attorney and who appointed the prosecutor to investigate former President Donald Trump on election interference. And all of a sudden, we find that she was sleeping with the prosecutor that she appointed, paid him almost $700,000, which she also benefited from. You know, you would think that people in these positions have seen enough on TV and seen how much illicit affairs and immoral behavior have destroyed careers, and you'd think at some point when they're in these roles, they would not do anything to compromise the task at hand. And it seems like everything, the downfall today, the Me Too movement, is all about sex, it's all about power. How do you, as a pastor, put this in perspective for us when we look at what's happening at the highest levels of power? We often focus on young adults and others, but it seems to infect everybody.
You know, Armstrong, those are very good and important questions. Let me frame it by giving a definition of religion as a set of beliefs concerning the cause, the nature, and the purpose of the universe. And it usually includes, besides devotion to a higher power, ritual, and practice, it also includes a moral code governing the conduct of human affairs. It was Voltaire, one of the architects of the Enlightenment, who said that that history doesn't repeat itself, humans do. And that is so true. Our faith lens and my faith tradition, whether we're looking at both Catholic or Protestant, we believe that the original intent of God in creation, especially creation of the human person, was to be holy, to flourish, to have a sense of purpose. But something happened. And the biblical account, though simple in its storyline, yet profound in an expression that humans are broken, wounded individuals. And that brokenness and that woundedness manifests itself in many, many different ways. And what we see happening in current events, whether it's yesterday, last week, 100 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, is an expression of that woundedness and that brokenness. The paradox is at the same time, we have good inside of us, and that good drives us to think differently. But we live in a tension between moral striving and moral standards and the reality of our human brokenness.
But you know, a good moral code is a set of rules that a person or group can follow in order to live a life of peace and full of goodness. And yet we see in this world today, I just saw an article in the Wall Street Journal asking the question, why is it so many young people are developing cancer and dying from it? Why are so many people on fentanyl? why there's so many fatherless homes. It seems like the world is turned topsy-turvy, upside down. What is right is now wrong, and what is wrong is not right. And it seems as though it's our moral code, the fact that not only that we dumbed it down, but we seem to make people believe they can choose their own moral code as long as it doesn't offend the next person. How do we somewhat get that genie back in the bottle? How do we somewhat make people realize, young and old, that it has always been the moral code and not the might of swords and weapons that has destroyed a nation, but when you begin to loosen the moral foundation of any place, including a home, it will soon fall.
Armstrong, you could have presented what you just articulated, the question that you posed, if the year was 1912 in America. And guess what? The question would be the same and the answers would be the same. And that is that we are, again, broken and wounded, and yet looking for meaning, for purpose. And we have access to so much to take us away from moral striving and a moral code that's presented. Unfortunately, today, we have access to tons of information and things that take us away from this that we've had in at any time in human history. So with the availability of ideas that are antithetical to moral striving and to a moral standard, and the invasion of those ideas in our society that look to rebel against divine order and in the name of freedom allow us to govern ourselves, to come up with our own code of ethics and morality, is created the kind of chaos that we see. The best thing, Armstrong, throughout history is to have people who do subscribe to a moral code, who do live by a set of boundaries and rules governing human behavior, to have those individuals shine their light in every aspect of human experience and at every level and platform available to them. Unfortunately, the negative voices are drowning us out.
I was talking to Aaron and Kevin on the way to the studio recently, and we were talking about our office environment, and I quipped to them, you realize how fortunate we are in an environment where there's never any drama, never conflict, everybody respects and uplift each other, and we all, Kevin's 24, Aaron's probably 38 or 40, we all came to the same conclusion simultaneously, and it was that we have a moral standard in this office. There are certain things that we will not accept. It is not a profane environment. It's an environment of trust. It's an environment of respect, and it always starts with the head. And so no matter what your shortcomings are as a CEO of an owner, you leave those at your home or somewhere else. You don't bring them to the environment where you expect to have leadership and set an example. Because listen, whatever you are is going to be infected. It infects everybody in your environment and everybody around you. But how do we get back to being an example? I want to talk about this on the other side of the break when we come back with Pastor A.R. Bernard, because these are questions that people are asking no matter where they are in their lives. Where is the character in America? We'll be back. And welcome back to the broadcast. And Pastor, and I know Billy Carson will join us later on the broadcast and we'll expand on other issues. And I'm not just talking about the entertainments and the political class. I mean, you have people of the cloth, people like T.D. Jakes, and the rumors that are out on him, whether they're true or not, where as a person of the cloth that you find yourself and where you allow yourself to be seen. And once people lose faith in the bishops and the pastors, they begin to say, well, God is flawed. Nobody believes in anything, and I'll do anything I want to do. But for you as a pastor, there has never been a controversy. There's never been a question of your character and your leadership and your example. And Pastor, I am to assume that's just not easy when it can affect and impact the best of us.
You know, Armstrong, again, we are all flawed in some way.
Yes.
But we have to make a decision as to what's going to guide us, what will be the boundaries in which we're going to live. You know, people ask me, we have a large congregation, we have several campuses, and we influence a lot of people locally, nationally, and globally. And people ask me, I've had other pastors come and ask me, so what's the secret to your success? What's the secret sauce to your leadership? And there's a wonderful passage where Jesus says, in the Gospel of John, he said, I sanctify myself so that they may be sanctified in truth. And he was talking about his disciples. Essentially, Armstrong, what he was saying is, I work hard on myself. I become the model that I want others to aspire to. And that's the secret. And it is really no secret, because whatever you want people to become as a leader, you must become it first. And the challenge is managing continuity and change around you while maintaining that central moral code and system. We all fall short. And unfortunately, God and our faith and our religion becomes judged by the public by the failure that some of these leaders find themselves getting into. It's unfortunate. They're human beings. I don't make excuses for them, but each person has to give an account as to their commitment to the moral standards that are presented to us, especially as leaders.
Well, I see my brother Billy Carson, the CEO of Forbidden Knowledge TV, best-selling author. This brother I have a lot of respect for. I've been following your videos. Congratulations on your recent nuptials. So proud of you. You know, the pastor and I were just talking about faith and religion and how the moral code is so important and so much of what you do. And you've built a global following around the world, but so much of it is rooted into a biblical understanding, a moral understanding, an understanding of faith. And when people mention your name, they're stunned when they oftentimes turn on the tube and see you and I dialoguing. They say, oh my God, I never would think that you and Billy Carson would have anything in common. I said, listen, if you reach out your hand and say, hi, my name is Armstrong Williams, let's have a conversation, you'd be shocked how much we have in common. Billy, talk about how faith and your biblical understanding impact what you do every day and what you share with people.
Well, I'm glad you brought me on the show, because a lot of people believe that I speak about spirituality a lot. That means I don't believe that there's a God, when that's actually the opposite. First and foremost, I am a scientist. I studied quantum physics at Carson University, and the quantum physics proves that we're living in a creation. It proves that we are living in something created by a higher source. And I believe that we're living in a creation that's created by God, and we have a divine energy that's imbued into each and every one of us through this creation. And so my daily life is predicated on prayer, but understanding the proper and correct way to pray. Understanding the power is already inside of us and how to access that power, and understanding that we ourselves need to hold ourselves to a high standard on a daily basis. And the goal is to seek excellence in everything that we do. And so that's pretty much what I try to tell people and speak to people. I try to let them know that, hey, if you keep waiting and hoping and wishing, sometimes you won't get the answer. A lot of the times we have to dig deep inside and look inside, go to inner space for those answers. And then we'll be able to manifest what needs to be created on the outside, because of the divine spark of the Creator is in every atom in our bodies.
You know, one thing I noticed about you on many of your journeys around the world, you are always in search of truth.
Yeah. Well, I love searching the world because when you travel outside of your zip code, you get another perspective. A lot of people have never left their zip code or their country. And so you have a very close perspective on the reality of what's going on in the world. and even your perception of your faith and your belief system. Once you begin to travel to other places and speak with indigenous wisdom keepers and elders and guides and sages and pyramid priests and temple priests all over the world, then you broaden your horizons and you get a much bigger picture. I think that, if you just stay in one place, your picture is pretty closed off and you can't really expand the mind. And a mind, once expanded, can never go back. And that has a lot. 2023, I spent 9 months in hotels. That's how much traveling we did, and it's all documented online. That amount of travel and meeting with that many people and going to that many ancient places and getting that amount of knowledge is like 10 lifetimes of knowledge in my head right now. But it's really expanded my outlook on humanity. I'm really extremely optimistic on where we're going as a species on this planet. And I do believe we will regain a golden age in the future.
Pastor Bernard, I know you mentor and you have a very strong youth service at Christian Culture Center. In D.C. and in Baltimore City, and all across this country, there's just a crisis with young people, with the violence, the theft, the carjacking, the car theft. There's a crisis in education. It seems like no one seems to be able to find the magic button to return these people to believe that that there's something better than this. This is just not normal. Our young people are not learning, and they think the only alternative they have that sort of superficial life that they see on social media, is to commit crime without any thought of the impact that it has on others. What do we do about our young in crisis and the fact that they're not being educated?
Sometimes what you're looking for has been right in front of you all along. And I have to say that the answers to the problems that plague us have been right in front of us in the context of faith and religious tradition. I appreciate your guest that you have on with us. I've read a little bit about him and understand immediately that we don't share necessarily our definitions or views on ultimate reality, but we do share a belief that in every religious belief, there is a moral code that governs human conduct and human affairs, that humanity's ultimate objective is human flourishing. But there are dominant trends, issues, narratives that are shaping the spiritual, moral, social, political, and economic landscape of our day. And what we need to do is reclaim that narrative. Unfortunately, with social media, 24-hour news cycle, the voices that are competing for the minds of our young people to take them away from moral standards and belief and faith are unfortunately outnumbering the other voices of truth and who are founded in belief and faith. It's something, Armstrong. It was Victor Hugo, a French writer and novelist, who said, you can resist an invasion of an army. You can resist an invading army, but you cannot resist the invasion of ideas. And that's what we're being invaded by over the last century, and especially in the 21st century. Ideas that turn into ideologies, a set of beliefs that begin to drive people. So there are all of these different ideas and ideologies that are pulling at the minds of our young people, and we have to get them back to, as your guest said, to that inner life, because we live life not from the outside in, but from the inside out.
Billy, how much of an impact is fatherlessness having on the society? The fact that men are not standing in the gap in leadership roles, in corporate America, in the ecumenical space, in the business space, in the schools, where men and women get an opportunity to interact with them. We know they're being displaced in the home. What happens to a society when you begin to see the overwhelming homes in a society that does not have these father and strong male figures that are available?
Yeah, well, you see the result is what we start to see now in the world. We're seeing the decline of the divine masculine. And there has to be a balance. Divine masculine and feminine, they balance each other out, yin and yang, if you want to go into the ancient, knowledge. But when you look and see that there's a lot of fatherless homes, and that masculine energy balance is not being brought into that home, to that youth, to help them grow up with a certain level of balance, all of a sudden, you begin to see the result that we have panning out today. We're talking about people, a generation and 2 generations and 3 generations of people growing up without the balance of masculine and feminine. And so you see that it creates a type of disharmony in the mind, a type of unknowing. And also in the spirit, it creates this seeking and yearning to find that which was already missing. And unfortunately, that can be found in the streets among friends and gang members and people into different things that they know they shouldn't be getting into, only simply because they feel that the energy that they're getting from those people is what they've been missing. And even though what they're doing could be leading them down the wrong path, they go anyway because they feel that there's an unconditional love coming from there in that frequency that they have been missing in their upbringing. So we've got to get the male figures back in the house. We have to celebrate, the heterosexual lifestyle, just like everyone else celebrates every other type of lifestyle. The reason why is because it's important. I mean, obviously, there wouldn't be 8 billion people on the planet right now if there weren't for heterosexuals. So that means that we should be looking to find more ways to solidify the household, bring back the father in the household, and increase the knowledge of bearing and raising children in a slightly different way. Some of the methods that parents have used now are really antiquated. This is a whole new society, a whole new type of generation. And so adults, I would say, who are in the household, we need to begin to research for ourselves and go to self-help, child-raising books, learning about this new generation in a way and learning different ways to impart wisdom on them, but not using the old techniques. The old techniques are not going to work on this new generation.
Work now. Okay, Pastor, you were saying something?
I'd like to compliment what Billy Carson has just said, because obviously he's speaking from a set of beliefs about what it means to be human and what it means to live in this world. He's speaking from a lens that affirms the ontological equality of men and women, but the distinction in roles. And the scripture teaches us in our faith tradition that the family is foundational to human society, and that the man, the father, is foundational to the family. So when as goes the man, so goes the society. So the restoration of that understanding and that worldview is critical for the future of our society, because it is the man. There's a wonderful passage, if I may refer to it, in Proverbs that says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So who he is affects not only the children born to him, but the children that will be born to his children. And leaving a legacy, Armstrong, is spiritual, it's intellectual, it is emotional, it's motivational, and then it's material. And whether we are intentional about leaving a legacy or not, we will leave a legacy. Either it will be filled with spirituality and as the foundation for life, or it will be empty spiritually, which means everything else that's built upon it will be influenced by that emptiness. So I celebrate that model that has been consistent throughout history and in every culture around the world. We need to restore that.
Billy Carson, Pastor A.R. Bernard, we'll be back.
It is easier to build up strong children than to try and repair broken men.
The streets are plagued with crime, violence, there's a lot of poverty, and it's all a result of lack of education that's happening in our schools. So it really is a crisis.
We come from very different political perspectives, but we've come to the same conclusion, and that is there is a crisis in the classroom. children are being deprived of quality of life because they're being deprived of a good education. We must solve this problem. It's incumbent upon all of us to join hands together to get this done.
We can't afford to wait one more day before we address these issues, because every day we lose another child.
Let's stop the politicking. Let's stop the games. Let's really do something to give these kids a real chance at life and being a part of that American dream.
We need accountability for funding. Many of the districts where you're seeing very low test scores, students graduating with very low literacy and math comprehension rates, they are receiving a lot of funding. So where is the money going where our kids aren't being adequately educated?
If you believe every child is deserving of a quality education, please go to educationjusticefoundation.com. Billy, speak to us about the new models that needs to be implemented raising children, especially raising boys into men in the household.
Well, the first thing we need to do as a family unit is dig deep into the health of our family. When you look into what we're ingesting on a daily basis, and even what the infant is ingesting in the gestation period, it's a lot of microplastics. Science has come out, new peer-reviewed science has come forward showing that these microplastics are increasing the estrogen levels in men to a high level that's actually detrimental to their development. It's even beginning to delay the onset of puberty, and it's creating a lot of what I can say is inconsistencies in the outcome of what that man or that boy would be as a man. And so basically, health plays a big role, but not just the microplastics. There's a lot of other foods now. We're finding the chemicals in a lot of these processed foods are also having hormonal imbalance problems on a massive scale on our children. So if you're raising kids and a man, you definitely need to look into the health. We need to start working on the health from us and the kids. It can't just be, we're going to eat healthy and we're going to get fit, we're going to get in shape. And then we've got our kids eating all of this junk that's literally poisoning them on a moment by moment basis. We have to stand up for our family and for our children and get them on the right track with health. That's number one. Number two, we need to speak with our kids and spend more time with our kids. We have to stop letting video games babysit our children. We're letting video games and YouTube shorts and video clips and TikTok babysit our children instead of taking some dedicated time. As a man, I have a schedule, I have a calendar. You were on this calendar today, and boom, I showed up. We have to take the same priorities, putting our kids on our importance of calendar, and we need to spend that quality time with them, get into their heads, get an understanding of what's going on with them, talk to them, answer questions, influence them in different ways. We need to be there for them instead of just seeing them for 2-3 hours at a night, eating at a table, watching a game, say a couple of words, go to sleep, and the next day comes along. That's not raising a family. That's not raising a man at all. We need to lead by example. And it starts with the health, and it starts with quality time.
Pastor?
Armstrong, I have to say that health is critical. We often forget that the spirit, the mind, soul, body, it's an integrated system. These are not distinct components unaffected by the other. They all have to work together. So I have to have a healthy body, a healthy mind, have emotional health, motivational health as a foundation for what I'm going to build in terms of my life. I like what he said about communication, because communication is the basis for life in anything. When communication breaks down, abnormality sets in, and the ultimate end of all abnormality is death. We know that in human relationships. We know that if we break a leaf from a plant, after a while, that leaf left to itself is going to die because communication has been broken. And I think restoration of quality communication is absolutely critical. But again, for me, Armstrong, it begins with a person's spirituality, where they are in what is transcendent, because there are certain aspects of our being that can't be empirically studied by science. These are love, these are faith, these are hope. These are ideas and concepts that transcend us, and yet they have great influence on who we are as individuals and shaping and influencing the society in which we live.
Billy, it seems as though, listen, I grew up at a time where I never heard about depression. I never heard about the blues. There was no such thing as getting sick. I mean, there was no such thing as men having maternity leave. And listen, my mother would have a baby on February 5th and be back in the field on February 7th. I mean, medication was not the be-all to everything. I mean, but it seems as though medication is the answer to everything today. Just medicate them. Oh, this kid cannot make it. Oh, this kid is depressed. We got to put them in this in this program. They have to get their self-esteem and their self-worth back up. But that's not who we and how we were raised. And to me, it's weakening and destroying a generation.
Yeah, no doubt. And like the pastor was saying, it starts with spirituality, understanding the power that's inside of you. I believe that you begin to teach your children at a very young age who they truly are and how powerful they are. Instead of letting them grow up thinking that they're powerless, let them know that they are powerful. Teach them positive affirmations. Teach them how to speak to themselves. Teach them how to wake up in the morning and write 5 things that they're grateful for every single morning, and begin to speak those positive affirmations on their life, even in times of darkness or when things don't seem that bright. Give them that self-empowerment, and you'll see that the depression will begin to decrease all around the world if everyone started applying these simple methods. And, in the medication, it's simply this. We, as a people on this planet, must stand together, and we must stop what's going on with this capitalization of healthcare. Capitalization of healthcare is what's killing people on this planet. Big Pharma is the #1 drug dealer in the world, far more than any other corner boy that's locked up for selling small amounts of paraphernalia or whatever they're selling on the corner. Far more than them. They beat them by the trillions. And so we have to say, look, enough is enough. Stop capitalizing. Doctors shouldn't get paid to write scripts for every little tiny thing. Half the time, they don't even evaluate what's wrong with you. If you go to a psychiatrist, you start telling them what you're feeling, the first thing they do is write a prescription for you. They don't even scan your brain or give you a SPECT scan to see what parts of the brain are getting blood flow. They don't even want to look at the organ. They just start writing scripts. So we're in a state right now where we have to be very conscious, and we need to really learn how we can collaborate together as a people, because the people really do have the power. And when this many people spiritually come together, we can stop anything that's coming against us. And at some point, we have to stand up and say, no, we're not going to play that game anymore.
Go ahead, Pastor.
Things I'd like to add to that, and I believe in affirmations every day. I wake up and affirm who I am because I'm made in the image of God, and God's desire for me is to flourish in my humanity, to use my gift, talents, and abilities to give back to human society and to increase the common good. But I also add to that discipline, because affirmation without discipline can lead to delusion. We have to discipline ourselves and have a set of values that guide our behavior, our conduct. And I think we live at a time where our society feels that we are losing control. And in the absence of control, what we try to do is philosophize, psychologize, or medicate. And those answers are not healthy. I believe that medicine serves a purpose, but not the kind of dependency that's created by our society. And I have to say, Big Pharma.
I want to do something a little different, because I find both of you fascinating. Of course, I do. And two men that I hold in high regards. So, Pastor, I'm going to give you a chance, and we're going to do this throughout the show, which remains, and ask a question of Billy Carson, and then vice versa.
Okay, you want me to ask him a question?
Of course.
Well, I don't know. We've never met personally, so I don't know the inner person. I can discover some of that from some of the things that I've seen and read. I appreciate his search, his hunger for truth. I shared that journey as well. His searching the scriptures that are not just the Christian scriptures, but scriptures and writings that have been elevated as scripture over time. I am curious about the origin of his spiritual philosophy, going back to the emerald tablets of Thoth, and I'm curious if he identifies that back to the findings of Maurice Doreal and his claim to finding those tablets in 1925 in the Great Pyramids of Giza, and how they have been substantially validated.
Great question, and thank you for asking that question. I started my path a very long time ago. When I was a young child, my father learned, he realized I had an aptitude for a great memory and reading. So I began reading at the age of 1, real books at the age of 1. I was reading children's books at 10 months, but reading real books at 1. And I had the ability to memorize a lot of information. So he would have me reciting the Lord's Prayer and the 23rd Psalm and all these, Proverbs and so forth. He made me do book reports on the Bible. And so that's how I got into this. I got into it through researching and studying initially that book, the canonized book itself, of the King James Version. But it led me down a path of seeking and looking and researching and then translating and looking for other translations, original text versions that could be correlated with others. Because I'm a type of person, when I research something, I want to get other substantial things to back it up. And so that's how I got down the rabbit hole of looking into the biblical texts and other ancient texts as well. And when it comes to the Emerald Tablets, I had already been researching the Sumerian tablets and other ancient texts, Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Indian Vedas, and I came across the Emerald Tablets. And as I began to read it, I realized that a lot of the, based on my science knowledge, a lot of the stuff that's in there, which is referring to what I would consider to be physics, quantum physics specifically, and some metaphysics, didn't really come forward in terms of our modern era until around the 1955 and up. And a lot of that stuff had been even discovered until just recently, about within the last decade and a half. So it's like, how can a person from that time period have this kind of knowledge? So I began to dig deeper, and I found out that Sir Isaac Newton had gotten his hands on a copy of these tablets. And there's a translation in Cambridge Library in the UK. The Queen of Sheba, Sir Roger Bacon, George Smith, who was an Assyriologist, just so many other people. E.A. Spicer, another American linguist who taught and had all levels of degrees in translations. And so I began to see that, wow, these tablets had been real and also influenced other people to write other types of books. I kind of saw the link between spirituality and what's in a lot of the modern day religions today, even in the New Testament of the Bible. So in my book, I put the verses side by side. And what I found was that the text is really saying the same thing overall, that the Bible is really trying to tell you. The message that's there is to learn how to come out of the darkness and then become the light. And once you become the light, you have to go back into the darkness and bring others to the light. It's really the same message. And what's interesting is I fell in love with that message, so I decided to write a book about it so that I can give people a much better breakdown and understanding of what had been said. I personally believe that text is around 36,000 to 38,000 years old, based on the age of the Great Sphinx, and the Great Pyramid, which is built around 2 processional periods ago, based on my actual hands-on knowledge and hands-on research. So I'm correlating those two and putting my own picture together, and that's where I come up with the age and also the authentication that the tablets are actually real.
The pastor a chance to respond when we come back after break. I'm Armstrong Williams. Don't go away.
As a home buyer, you need a lender who cares about your home ownership dreams. United Security Financial has been helping families secure their dream homes for 30 years. We're a national fair practice lender that provides affordable mortgages and low down payment programs to eligible home buyers. To learn how United Security Financial can help you secure your dream home, call 1-800-373-4186.
You're enjoying this discussion as much as I am. Pastor Bernard, you're about to respond to Billy Carson, and welcome back.
Yeah, I appreciate his journey. And of course, what it boils down to is his faith in all that he's read to answer the big questions of ultimate reality, what it means to be human, and what it means to live in this world. And of course, that is the power that seized my heart and mind and turned me from Islam to Christianity, and why that has been my foundation and continues to grow me and shape me in my understanding of this world in which we live and the best way to function in it. So it really, boils down to faith in the documents. What I do want to point out that distinguishes Christianity and Jesus from all other religious beliefs is that all other religious beliefs point to a set of teachings, a moral code, a set of values, but Christianity points specifically to a person who made some very incredible claims. He claimed to be deity. He claimed to be the Yahweh of the Jewish faith in the Hebrew scriptures. And he claimed to be the source of all truth and life and light. And either we take him fully or we have to reject him fully. We can't take bits and pieces of him. And I'm just curious to know how Billy Carson responds to Christianity's pointing to a person above and beyond a set of values or moral code.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. You see, a lot of people don't realize that at the age of 12, Jesus disappears from the biblical text. Where does he go? Well, he goes to Egypt. What is he doing in Egypt? He's learning the Egyptian mysteries. And this is well documented. Even the path that he went as he went throughout Egypt and all the locations that he stayed. I've taken people. I just took 140 people on tour in October to see the actual bed that he slept in Coptic Cairo, where the original Christians are still there. Long before Christianity even existed, in terms of the Jesus version, they already had the Coptic Christians. The cross already existed long before Jesus was born. And then from there, he went up into Tibet to learn Qigong and Reiki healing with his hands, confirmed by the Dalai Lama. From there, he went down into India, learning the mystic arts. Where can you find this knowledge? In the Gospel of the Holy 12, one of the books that are left out of the Bible. I believe that the ultimate message of Jesus, aka Yeshua, because Jesus is actually not an actual real name. The J was just added in the 1600s. And we're really saying Jesus, which means Hail Zeus. But the name of Jesus is Yeshua. That's his actual name, Yeshua. I believe that his ultimate message was the message of truth, love, and light to bring and help transform mankind's consciousness to a higher level so that they can exit through the matrix, which is the Bible calls the matrix a womb in the King James Version. For them to be born again to a higher level of consciousness and to be able to look back and see their previous self and realize that they've grown spiritually and that you can continue to be born again over and over again in this same lifetime if you continue to expand your mind and grow as a person, as a human being. Also to be of service to others and to not forget the people that are in the darkness, because I can sit around a round table with 10 high-level spiritual individuals and we can meet every single day for a whole year and we'll get nothing accomplished. In order to make a change in this world, you have to go out like Jesus did, Yeshua. He went to the pimps, the drug addicts, the prostitutes, because you have to bring darkness to the light. And in whatever way or fashion or form that you can find a way to do it. And so my method is that, I use my lifestyle. I have a pretty good lifestyle. I'm a successful businessman. I use my lifestyle to draw people in to bring them to knowledge and understanding, and to teach them how to forgive themselves and to grow as a person spiritually. And so I believe that you can say, well, if you go one way or the other, I don't think you can. I think that the Bible has a lot of great information, but I do believe there's a very slight remix in some of the texts. For example, some of the texts in the Bible, it condones slavery, including words that Jesus say in the New Testament, to honor your slave masters, you would honor me. I don't believe that that's written by Yeshua. I believe that a man added that so that he can condone slavery and utilize that one verse to rule over other people, put his boot on the neck of other people, and that got passed down for hundreds of years. So I just believe that you can't say it's either one or the other. I think we have to have a little bit of discernment and realize that at the end of the day, men with actual, flesh and blood wrote this text, and that it leaves room for a little bit of remixing. And a lot of the texts come from the Enuma Elish, the Atra Hasis, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Myth of Adapa, the Code of Hammurabi, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Myth of Atana. All these books and texts are what primarily make up about 2/3 of the Bible text.
I would love to take the time, we don't have the time on your show, to ask for the sources and citations for several of the things that Billy Carson said that I have to challenge. The existence of Christianity before the birth of Christ is problematic because there was no Christianity, no history of Christianity until his disciples began to formulate the religion called Christianity. I'm also concerned about the sources that track Jesus's life from age 12. The biblical record shows him going to Egypt when he was about 3 or 4 to 5 years old, and then returning to Palestine. It doesn't indicate any record of, Jesus's journeys outside of that. So I think, citations, etc. I think the biggest issue is Jesus's claim to be God, not a divinity, not a deity, but the ultimate divinity, the ultimate deity to which all other deities would answer. And, we can talk about the evolution of Jesus in some writings into divinity and deity, but central to Christianity is the belief in the gospel message. And of course, the evidences in the Hebrew scriptures that point to this very unique individual in history, which is, historical fact, and his claim to ultimate deity. So I appreciate, hearing your journey, and I would love to have further conversations with you off air.
Billy, a quick question for Pastor Bernard.
Have you ever gone through the biblical text and broken it down from Aramaic all the way back into Akkadian, Sumerian, Babylonian, and looked at some of the original versions, even maybe in some of the runes text, and even further back to see some of the original translations, and also correlated the Sinai Bible, which predates the King James Version of the Canonized Bible, and see the 14,000 different differences in those biblical texts?
Well, yes, I did. Canonization did not begin with King James. Canonization took place in the early history of the church within the first 400 years as the church fathers struggled to determine what is actually inspired by God, which is what canonization is all about. And when you bring in Sumerian texts or any texts that come from other contexts, it becomes problematic. The reason we have a canon is because there were qualified individuals who took the time to say, well, this we can bear witness to is inspired by God, and this can be somewhat spurious. And they set those aside. As you know, in the Catholic Bible, some of the texts that are not in the Protestant Bible are included. But at the end of the day, we go back to the big question, and that is dealing with the claims of the person of Jesus. If we embrace him as a prophet amongst a long line of prophets, if we embrace him as a wise teacher, if we embrace him as a spiritual figure that we should be inspired by, we cannot ignore his claims to ultimate deity and his claims to ultimate life, to be the life giver. Those things are very, very important and have to be settled. Otherwise, we have to reject him as a madman, a crazy man, to even suggest that he is who he claimed to be.
Well, if I can just add something really quick to that. Do you realize that the Sumerian text, do you realize that the majority of Genesis is from the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation? So you can't reject that text because that text actually makes up part of the biblical text. The Epic of Gilgamesh is the full story of Noah's Ark. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, they've even found the Ark tablet where Noah, which his name is really Zidra, was ordered to make the Ark. And we have the original instructions for the actual Ark, which was discovered about 3 years ago. It's in the British Museum right now. I was just making a post about that today again. But so we can't really reject these writings in these texts. Also, when you're looking at the consideration of who is controlling the narrative of Christianity, it's being controlled by the Roman Catholics. And so this whole thing about Yeshua claiming to be a God, you have to then say, okay, who's walking side by side and writing every single word down that he's saying? Who's writing this down? Who's recording this? Because when you begin to find out when the origins of this biblical text, it started in around about 100 AD, but these people are already dead. So, and when you begin to look through the Bible and reference ancient tablets and texts that can be dated, you begin to realize it's copied from those ancient tablets and texts.
Pastor, we got about a minute left. Your response?
You know, we've got to now talk about some of the historical records that have been suppressed. And the great thinkers such as Tertullian, such as Cyprian, such as Augustine, the great fathers of the church that are celebrated by the Western church, Western Christianity, they were Black, they were Africans. These are the ones who established the great thoughts of Western Christianity. Unfortunately, that has been suppressed. So to understand that narrative is critical to know our contribution to the development and progression of Christian thought and Christian theology, including the deity of Jesus Christ. But again, those claims are critical. And it's not just the historical fact, but the credibility of the witnesses. It is called motives of credibility. And there are grounds to believe these individuals who were willing to die, to give their lives, to be slaughtered, to be drawn in quarters, to be boiled in oil, because of their belief in this individual and the continuity.
I wish we had more time, Billy. Pastor Bernard, we're out of time. I could go on for another hour. Thank you for this special broadcast. I'm Armstrong Williams. Wow.